Hey, Omid here. On this episode of the Deem stream, I got the chance to speak with Joe Ratliffe, a photographer and a soon-to-be Vanlifer. Joe and I discussed his passions within photography and how he came to decide that he wanted to live in a van straight out of attending an Ivy League university. And of course, we also discussed a little bit about the coronavirus outbreak and how we feel about the changes in our lifestyle. Alright, that's it. My name is Omid, and this is the Deem stream. 3, 2, 1. Joe Ratliffe, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
This is the first episode recorded during the COVID-19 crisis. I've been affected because I don't have toilet paper. And I've been stuck home for a couple weeks, and I've been looking at a screen for a bunch of hours a day at school. How are you affected, Joe?
You guys really ran out of toilet paper?
We kind of ran out of toilet paper for a minute there, but we're okay.
Oh, geez.
We just had to kind of hold it in there for a little.
Yeah. It's been all good for me. I've been in Ketchum, Idaho, which actually has now become one of the largest hotspots for coronavirus.
Really?
It's a large vacation destination, and I'm assuming that a lot of people have come from out of town, very different parts of the country, to all come together at this place where they have second homes or something like that. And it's actually become kind of a hotspot for COVID-19 based on the small population and the number of people that have been affected. So the number of infections per capita in the area is extremely high comparatively to larger cities. So we're beginning to see a lot more like isolation, and all the stores are shutting down and restaurants. So same thing that's been happening across the country, but coming to a more rural area of the United States.
Yeah. How are you feeling about the whole thing? Are you kind of worried, or are you kind of just neutral about it, or what?
I mean, I'm not worried for myself or really for most of my close family. My grandparents are in a really good place. They've been being brought meals every day and everything like that. They've been very safe. But I'm more worried about the major impacts that it's going to have on the world and on people. I mean, 3.5 million Americans filed for unemployment last week, which I think it at least was 7 times higher than the previous week. So we're starting to see a lot of economic impacts out of coronavirus, and that, and then people that are at risk to lose their lives and don't have the same infrastructure that my grandparents have in their retirement home to be delivered meals. You know, it's just intimidating what's going to happen to the world throughout this time.
Right, it is scary for everyone, for sure. And hopefully it doesn't grow anymore. Let's talk a little bit more about you. We don't want to talk about COVID-19 the whole time. So tell me your story. You know, how did you end up here with me right now, you know? What's happened in the last 2 decades?
So what's happened in the last 2 decades? I grew up in Seattle, Washington. I still live in Seattle, Washington. That's where my parents live. And I went to high school. I picked up rowing kind of at the end of middle school, and then got recruited to row for the lightweight rowing team at Princeton with Omid's brother, actually, Amin, at Princeton. And so currently I'm a senior at Princeton, studying online at Princeton University online. So that's been a lot of fun. But I've really grown very close to your brother, and I've been able to come out to Salt Lake City a couple times, and it's been awesome hanging out with Omid and Lily and the whole Moshfar family. Every time I come out, you guys are so great. Your mom cooks so well, so it's always good being there. And that's what brought me to the podcast.
Awesome. Well, it's great to have you, Joe. Okay, you make it sound easy when you say, I just got into Princeton, and, you know. What, I'm sure it's easier for other people, but talk to me a little bit about, like, what got you through, I guess, the stresses of high school, if there were any for you. Mm-hmm. What did you resort to when you kind of wanted to do what you loved, you know?
Mm-hmm. So a lot of what I loved in high school was I loved my rowing team more than anything. And then also I really found a lot of artistic passions in photography and videography. But those kind of were an escape from school for me. And I didn't really have the best grade point average ever. Like I was never excelling in all of my classes. And then my sophomore year in high school, I was diagnosed with dyslexia, and that really helped in getting extra time and being able to use the Learning Resource Center a little bit more at my high school. That really improved my GPA throughout my junior and senior year, and even the end of my sophomore year, because I got tested about midway through. And then just kind of like I always put in a lot of work to school. I continued to work hard at it today, and I've always found that important. But then getting into Princeton, it was really the rowing that helped me more than anything. And I was looking at going to school for rowing, and found that the only lightweight programs were these top end programs. This was around my sophomore year where I was kind of looking at rowing, and the top end programs were these Ivy League lightweight programs for guys my size, because I wasn't big enough to be recruited to University of Washington or Cal Berkeley, or Stanford was where I really wanted to go. But then once I understood that my only options were Ivy League, I realized I had to do really well in school and get good test scores and then row really well to get recruited there. So put a lot of effort into school and rowing through my sophomore to senior year.
I see.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit more about your photography endeavors. Like you
Yeah.
said, that's a kind of an out of school type of thing that you love to do. How has that kind of evolved since high school? How did you get into it?
Mhm. So my parents gave me a camera for Christmas when I was like 15 years old. And then, so that was my sophomore year, I believe. Maybe, yeah, my sophomore year. And then after that, I got my driver's license like a month later and started going around the city and taking a lot of night pictures, because that was really the only time I was free, was kind of after practice. So I was taking a lot of night photography, a lot of long exposure stuff. I really loved that. And so I kept I kept doing stuff like that. But I started doing a lot of stuff like that, and then I wanted more gear, and I wanted all these other things related to photography. And it's an expensive habit. Someone once told me, if you don't want your kids doing drugs, get them into photography because they won't have any extra money. But yeah, so like buying all that gear, it took a lot of money. So I actually started doing kind of portrait and photo shoots for people, and I was doing some commercials for uh, boats. Like I was making commercials for this one guy who was selling boats, and I really started to make money off that and started to enjoy it a lot. And so I kept doing that. I've continually made money, but it's really to feed this hobby of my artistic photography, or kind of like my documentary photography, I would say more so. Um, for me, photography has always really been more about capturing the world around me and looking at it in a different way, more so than kind of abstraction and art for me. So,
Yeah, what about capturing the world in your own view was so, I think, like, what made that so important to you?
yeah, I think that's been crucial for me, just to kind of express myself and kind of capture my own angles and memories, because I always have had kind of a bad memory, but ever whenever I see anything visual, that really like stimulates my memory in a lot of ways. So capturing the people and the places and the things that I saw was always kind of a way to capture those memories forever. But then also I started getting some really cool images out of it, and I liked the way they looked and the artistic sense of them, but they always meant more to me than they meant to other people, which I think was kind of therapeutic and still
Yeah.
remains to be pretty therapeutic.
So were you always, like you said, that you kind of were more impacted by your photos? Do you ever feel, or were you ever hungry for kind of like a recognition for your photography, or were you only self-motivated, or, what kept you going?
Yeah, I've never really been that excited about the recognition. I've tried to start a photography Instagram like 5 different times,
Which I love.
and
I
like
like
try
think
to.
your one's great right now, yeah.
No, thank you, I appreciate it. But yeah, I've started like 5 different Instagrams, and they've all had like Joe Ratliff photography or something like that. But I I start doing it, and then I kind of get to the point where I'm like, why am I doing this? Why am I posting? And the end goal is always to make money doing that for me. It's not really about like getting a lot of likes or anything like that. It would be to be able to sustain it as a career because it's something I love. And more so than like getting likes and getting people excited about my photography, I just really enjoy it for myself. So I like to take the photos and I like to print them and put them up somewhere, give them to people if I want an experience with someone else. And that's always been a lot more valuable to me than the recognition.
Awesome. That's great. So when you finally went to Princeton, what year was that? I don't know. 3 years ago? 20?
We started in 2016.
Okay,
Yeah.
2016. So in 2016, as a freshman, uh, was balancing the workload and then also kind of your photography interests, was that difficult? How did you do that?
It was impossible. I didn't shoot any photos my freshman or sophomore year outside of paid gigs while I was on campus. So and that continued until I took one photography class my freshman year, and I did that because it was schoolwork. I had to do that. And then my senior year, I did the same thing and did it as schoolwork. I took another photography class. But every time I was on campus, I was not being very creative outside of the 6 month period that I was injured throughout my sophomore year and took a video of the lightweight rowing team while I was sitting at practice injured. Um, but that was pretty tough. And I think it might have just been a part of the culture of the school and how hardworking it is, but also just kind of I would rather while I was in college, I had so much less time that I would rather spend that hanging out with friends than I would have shooting photos on my own and kind of going off and doing my own thing.
Yeah. So did that take a toll on you? I mean, how did you feel about not having the time to do photography?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was almost like it wasn't that I didn't have the time to do photography because I had free time, but it was more that the stuff around me wasn't exciting me to do photography and
Okay.
take time to do that. Where Princeton is a pretty small suburb of New York City, and it's a pretty wealthy community. It's got a lake and pretty small buildings and just not a lot of interesting stuff going on comparatively to Seattle, where I was surrounded by this huge city and so much emotion and people from different backgrounds, and also being able to access the mountains and the wilderness. That was such a different setting for me that I didn't find as interesting. Like I was never excited to go to Princeton town, the town itself. So um, that was kind of the difference for me. Was like when I was in Seattle, I was always excited to be going out and seeing the things that I was seeing. Whereas in Princeton, I didn't have a car for a lot of the time, and I was just kind of sitting in this little campus bubble that I was so used to every day, and that nothing new ever really happened. But I did take a couple of experiences or of opportunities to go and shoot some things that I had seen many times, but wanted to see in a different angle. But those were for classes.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So you've done a couple entrepreneurial ventures, the little gigs that you said. I know that you and my brother did a little tech startup
Terra
kind of thing
Terra
called Terra
views.
Views, which is cool. Do you mind explaining what that is real quick?
Yeah. So Terra views was actually created the summer after our sophomore year uh, by a team of four guys. It was Amin and Lucas Manning and Kobe Miller and myself, and we created a virtual reality marketing platform for outdoor companies where you could actually sell products through virtual reality, and you could click on the different products that you were seeing in maybe a camping setting, and you could click on those products, read descriptions, add them to your cart, and then purchase them all through virtual reality. So that was extremely exciting. We actually got into four different retail stores, and that was really cool. And we did it all in like 10 weeks. So it was extremely fast paced, super exciting, and it was a great team to work with. So that was very rewarding.
That's awesome. Did you were you I mean, did that make you kind of think about what you wanted to do after college? You know, you're learning and you're kind of not yet in the real world. What did you want to do after? You know, what were you thinking?
Yeah. Yeah. So basically that was my first introduction to actually working for the summer in like a normal job, because before that I had worked in a marina for the 2 summers before that and was kind of a dockhand getting random shift hours. And then that next summer I worked, or the summer after TerraViews, I worked as a data analyst at a pretty large tech company. And kind of throughout all of those experiences, I enjoyed more the entrepreneurial side, kind of being your own boss and doing that. And so I would love to be able to do something like that after college. But at this point, I really have no idea what I want to go into. I mean, even after you go through 4 years of college, studying a specific major, I don't know that I want to be an economist or a data analyst or computer scientist for that matter. But all of those things have kind of prepared me to be able to do something else. So I don't know what that is yet. We'll see what that is. But
Hmm.
I kind of want to take some time to reflect on that before I jump into a career.
Right. I
Yeah.
have a question for you. I guess it's not directly towards you, but in my year of kids in my class and the years before and the years kind of after a little bit, um, a lot of the kids and their parents who are kind of more unaware and more traditional of like what school is like after high school, they say, you go to school, you get into a good school such as Princeton, and then you're set.
Mhm.
Would you agree with that? I mean, how do you feel about that? I mean, what does that mean to be set?
I think it makes kind of a bad system in a lot of ways, where it rewards people for doing this one accomplishment of something that they did when they were 18. Like if you were to hire someone because they went to a school like Princeton, you would you would be hiring them based on a decision that they made when they were 15 to 18, saying I'm going to work really hard to get into Princeton. And I don't think that's the right way to hire anybody. But more than that, I think the whole idea of, oh, you got in, you're set, it makes sense in that someone that goes to a school like that can probably find a way to go make a lot of money. And the real question is whether what they are going to go make money in is something that they are going to enjoy for the rest of their life. So a lot of people go and get consulting jobs or finance jobs or big tech jobs, and although those are totally jobs that a ton of people enjoy doing and love doing, there are definitely people that go out and get jobs that just want it to have an income. And I don't think that's the right way to approach the whole idea of college, where you say you're going to Princeton and now you're set. So I think you should still try to find what you love doing and try to pursue that as your career over just pursuing it for money.
Right. And in my experience, I've met a lot of people who applied to schools with that school of thought, and then they don't get in, I think. So it's definitely having the
Yeah.
correct mentality going into it.
Yeah.
So you definitely are more on the side of doing what you love, and I love that about you. Talk to me about a project you're working on right now. I'm going to kind of spoil it for the listener, but you're working on a van. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm building out a 2014 Ford E150. It's an old ambulance, so it's kind of converted to a high top, and her name is Amber, the ambulance. Uh, and I am currently putting in the headliner storage. So that's kind of the storage that's above your driver and passenger seat up front. But I've been kind of building that out over the last 9 months, but progress was super slow while I was in school. And now that we have been kicked out of school, the ambulance conversion has been going swimmingly since then. I've been going to the hardware store, and they basically are all shut off. You can't go inside. You just tell them what you want, and they'll bring it out to you, and they deliver it right to the car. So that's been really awesome, and I've been getting a ton of work done. I built some storage for the trunk area. I have two like 50-inch drawers, which are on big heavy duty sliders, and just kind of been dialing in the electrical and stuff like that. So it's been a lot of fun.
Awesome. And like, what made you initially want to get into that, into
Um,
getting a van?
I've always been a huge YouTube guy, and I started watching these van life YouTubers. Like a lot of people I think watch these van life YouTubers that have no intention of going into a van at any point, but it's just kind of cool to watch people build these little tiny homes. And I've always been a guy who loves to build stuff. So I was always super into Legos as a kid and all that. But now being able to do it on such a large scale has just been absolutely awesome to be building something. Uh, but then also just the idea of kind of living in something that's mobile and pretty easy to deal with, and you know everything behind all of the kinks and all of the mechanisms that make it operate, and you being able to fix that is also really cool. So I love the idea of being able to go out to any national park and be able to stay there for 7 days without being uncomfortable, because I kind of determine my comfort in how I make the van. So um, that's something I'm really excited about, and I want to do it for a pretty long period of time after I graduate to just kind of reflect and reward myself a little bit for a lot of hard work, but go out and have an incredible experience and do photography and practice the things that I'm really passionate about on kind of a full-time level versus doing it here and there as a hobby. I want to do it to the fullest extent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, do you ever compare yourself to all of the other graduates or who are going into big corporate jobs, like you explained earlier?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's been the biggest struggle for me this year, probably, has been kind of watching all of my friends get these really incredible jobs, and then knowing deep down that I don't want to do that immediately after college. But I've always been kind of a competitor, and so I was like, at the beginning of the fall, I was still talking to companies like I was going to go get a job right after college. And then I realized that if any one of these companies gave me an offer and told me, can you start in July, I will have wasted my own time preparing for the interview, wasted their time and money trying to interview me and hire a new person, and possibly taken that job away from one of my classmates. So I that was a big struggle for me in kind of comparing myself. But also, I think that my approach to entering the workforce is going to be very different than the typical college graduate, where you kind of get recruited at 9 months before your start date, and then you have that job coming down the pipe. But for me, once I graduate and spend a few months in the van, I'm just going to be a regular hire. I'm no longer going to be a university hire. I'm just going to be an entry level job position person. So it'll be the type of recruiting where they say, can you start in a week? And so I've kind of accepted that now, but it was definitely difficult while I was still at school.
Yeah. What made you finally, make the decision to go with the van life?
Um, what made me pull the trigger was someone I was talking to this guy in the Los Angeles airport, actually, and he had a wife, and he was about 45 years old. And I asked him what he was doing. He was dressed up kind of like a biker, and we started talking after going to Starbucks together. But he actually was traveling through all of Asia as a private chef on a motorcycle, and he would get hired to go to these random places in Asia, and he would motorcycle to wherever it was, across all of these different countries in Southeast Asia. And I told him that I was kind of thinking about doing a van or something like that when I got older. And he said, why when you get older? And I didn't really have a great answer for him, but uh, the the thing that he told me, and it's weird that I was taking this advice from a traveling chef through Southeast Asia, but the advice that he told me was do it before you have a wife and kids and a full-time job and all of that stuff, because you're just going to be looking forward to that for the rest of your life. Whereas if you did it now, you don't have any commitments, you don't have anything you can't do right now. So go out and do it now, and then be able to go and settle down full time if that's what you want to do later. Don't settle down full time and then say, oh, now I can't do that big adventure. So this was kind of the perfect timing for me, and that was why I wanted to do it right now. So I ended up buying the van and started converting it.
Well, that's great, man. And now it's kind of come full circle. We're at the present now, right? Is that how we're feeling?
Yeah, definitely.
I think it's pretty daring of you. I know you didn't know, but you drove across the country in a semi-finished van with my brother who had coronavirus. So kudos to you for that. How are you feeling?
Yeah.
Are you sick at all?
No, I haven't had any symptoms. I've been giving your brother a lot of crap. He keeps getting excited about when I'm going to get symptoms and stuff like that. But so far, I mean, we were exposed to each other long before the road trip. I mean, we were roommates back at school. So, you know, whenever he probably got introduced to it, I probably got introduced to it at the same time. And I have gotten tested. I'm waiting on my test results, but I haven't felt any symptoms so far. I've been being extremely cautious. I haven't really left my room outside of meals where my mom will feed me at the other end of the table from the rest of the family. And then I also haven't been going out to any stores where you would go into the store and touch stuff on the shelves. Everything's been delivered to me. But yeah, it's crazy. And it's one of the things that made me want to go into the van was I took a road trip my sophomore summer across the country with two of my buddies, and I was amazed by how fast we adapted to living out of a car and how easy it was after a little while. But that type of human adaptation that makes people able to change their situation and become so normalized to it, like humans have this ability to think of whatever situation they're in as what it is rather than looking at outside perspective. So watching this epidemic come through and watching all the quarantines has really been interesting to see how people's habits change so fast, and how now this has really become my normal life, where I don't think about the fact that I'm in the middle of Idaho right now when my home is in Seattle and I should be at school at Princeton. Like I'm just kind of thinking of right now, and I'm sure everyone else has kind of had that same sort of mindset change of this is our new normal, and I don't really remember what it was like before as much.
Right. I agree with you.
Yeah.
And I guess now is definitely a time to become more creative because we don't really have much to do. I'm sure you have more time to maybe go out at night where no one's around and take some night photography and things like that, hopefully.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that. What have you been up to throughout the quarantine? What have you been doing?
Like I said, I've just been at home doing some school. I've been working on Deem. Deem's growing, everyone.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Got a couple of featured youth lined up. And I'm so glad to have had you, Joe, on here. Yeah. Definitely, hopefully we can get some of your photography on there too.
Yeah.
I have one more question for you that I ask all my guests on the Deem stream.
Give it to me.
And that question is, if you had some advice to give people who are aspiring to do what you do, to maybe row, go to Princeton, photography, van life, whatever you want to give advice to, or just how to live a good life, what do you have to share?
Yeah, that's a big question.
Take your time.
That's one of those questions that I really don't feel prepared to answer as much as a guy who has very little experience. But you know, I would say that more than anything, my biggest regret throughout college and all of that was I really wish I would have focused more on doing what I love throughout the experience. And I think that that's something that everyone should do. so I would say always do what you love. Never be too tired to hang out with your friends. Take those minutes off of your sleep or out of your Netflix time and go be with the people that you really care about and love, because you never know when something like this is going to take it away from you. So I wish I would have spent more time with my friends throughout college, and then also just focusing more on what I really enjoy doing. So yeah.
Great. Well, you heard it from Joe himself, everyone. But thanks so much for coming on, Joe. I hope you enjoyed
No
that.
problem.
I enjoyed it very much.
My name is Joe Ratliffe, and this is the Deem Stream.
All right.
How was that? Did that sound
Cool.
good?
That was amazing.
It sounded
Fantastic.
cool. Did I sound cool
Sounded
saying
good.
it?
Do you want to try again?
Yeah. My
Make
name
it
is
sound
Joe
cool.
Ratliffe. Okay. My name is Joe Ratliffe, and this is the Deem Stream.
All right. That was good. That was perfect.
That one is going to be good. That's going to be the one.